I'm Kiki, and I'm a storyteller. Everyone has a story, and I'm here to listen. This is What It's Like to Be Here. Welcome to the newest episode of What It's Like to Be Here, where my guest today is actually my cousin, Noel. We've obviously known each other most of her life. I'm a little bit older. She's a Chicagoan public school teacher, and I'm excited to be able to welcome you to the podcast today. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Well, I guess just to start it off, because I did touch on ages and I'm older. How old are you?
I'm 38.
All right.
I'll be 39 in a couple months in December.
Somebody at level 3 still.
Yeah.
All my guests have been at level 4.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, all right, level 3. And you are also a mom, right?
I am.
And how old, you don't have to name your child, just how old is your child?
Yeah. So I have a daughter and she's 10. Yes.
Fun. Preteen years.
Oh, and she reminds me of it often.
All right. So this is the question of the day. Tell me what it's like to be here. So considering, and I always just give you time to breathe, right?
Yeah.
Considering, in this time and place, as a teacher, as a mother, just considering things that you've gone through in your life, what does it feel like to be sitting here? And you can answer that existentially, or you can answer that, you're wearing red in the red room. So, that also kind of plays a part somehow. But go ahead. What does it feel like?
Well, it's funny because when I was driving over here, my daughter was like, what is she even going to ask you about anyway? Like, kind of that assumption, like, what could mom possibly know? Like, how could she possibly be interesting? And she's like, and I told her, I said, one of the big questions she's going to ask me is what is it like to be here in the world? And she goes, well, we're all in the world. I said, I know, but we all experience it differently. And she's just like, okay, whatever, and then we just move on. But I think in this present time in our history and the context of Chicago, it's like a roller coaster to be here. It just feels like there are days where it's really rough and difficult to be here. And there are days where I'm purposefully okay, what was my joy today? What was a glimmer today? And, I find too, though, that it's kind of a luxury, a privilege, really, not a luxury, a privilege that I can be some days it's hard and some days it's not, because I can turn off the news, right? I cannot go on social media. I can see something and be like, nope, not today, and then just swipe past it. So I say that with the acknowledgement that I also know that it's a privilege to be able to say some days it's hard and some days it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything more true than that, right?
Yeah.
Taking it one day at a time, surviving.
Yeah.
Trying to strive, right? Because from a mental health perspective, right? And I feel like we talk about this all the time because we've gone through very similar things with our family.
Yeah.
But just that acknowledgement of I know that my head is not in the right spot. So how can, and then how does that impact, right? Your teaching and our kids, right? There's just so much that goes into living every day. So many things that we have to be aware of that I totally feel you completely.
Yeah, it's I feel like as I grow older, I white knuckle less, right? If you're thinking about white knuckling it through your life, I do that less, not because I have less tolerance. I don't know, but it's because I feel like, hopefully it's wisdom. I have the wisdom to understand hey, when you're doing it this way, it makes it really hard for you to take care of the people you love, for you to do the job you love. I'm lucky to have a job I love, to do the job you love well and be there for those kids. So I feel like in my 20s, I would kind of just push through. But now as I get older, I'm starting to realize not only do I need to take care of myself, but I need to talk about it with other teachers or moms or friends and with my students. So that way they can see that there's nothing wrong with taking a pause or for deciding to say no about something because it's not going to feel good for them. Yeah.
Okay. There's a lot to unpack there.
Oh, sorry.
That I kind of really want to get into. But
Sure.
one of the main questions too, I just want your perspective of Chicago.
Yeah.
What's your version of Chicago? Because although I feel like we grew up in similar areas, we didn't grow up in the same neighborhood. We didn't go to the same schools. So tell me your version of Chicago and like about growing up here.
Yeah. Well, I'm one of those annoying, like, die-hard Chicagoans. You know, like, Chicago's the best city in the world. You're not going to tell me anything else. I don't care. You know, like, whatever. But, you know, I grew up in Gage Park, and I was there my whole life, went to college at Illinois State. So I moved out for college and came back to Chicago to teach, came back to Gage Park. And I lived there all of my life until most recently when I moved to Garfield Ridge, which is very different. Having grown up in Gage Park, having gone to school, I went to school at Jones College Prep. So I was on the train a lot, going downtown. Chicago very much felt like this. It felt very accessible. It didn't feel dangerous, but you know, I was very aware that no place is completely safe. So it's like for someone to just like put dangerous as like a overarching adjective, like I don't identify with that. And it's just like, I'm trying to think of, because I can feel like in my body what Chicago means to me, but it's like trying to put it into words, you know?
Yeah.
It's just home. That's how I feel about like having grown up here. And I just feel like I need to always like protect it and the people who are also here in Chicago. And we all like deserve to be here. We all deserve to like enjoy Chicago and all the beauty and the neighborhoods and the culture. And like people who can't hang, they could go somewhere else.
I agree with you 100%. And I feel like one of the things that we did share was that our high schools were pretty much down. Well, you were in downtown.
Yeah.
I was literally, I could see downtown and
Right.
it was a bus right away. I went to St. Ignatius College Prep, you know, taking the trains every day. So there was less of any kind of fear. Like, what am I afraid of? Yeah, I know I can get pickpocketed. Yeah, I know I can, like, all these things. I mean, it also helped that we had our family, our aunts and uncles also were very much invested in the city.
Yeah.
You know, the streets and sanitation, Chicago Police Department,
Yeah.
Chicago Transit Authority, right? Like they worked for the city.
Right.
And so there was also, I feel like for me, at least, there was also like, what do I have to be afraid of if they're out there, if they're the ones working also for the city?
And I feel like, you know, my dad, even though he doesn't live in Chicago anymore, I know he loves Chicago. Like I know Chicago is his heart. And I feel like he did a good job of being like, you know, I don't want it to sound like I naively was just like basking in Chicago and not thinking about where I was and what I was doing. But I felt very prepped, like by my dad about like literally like how you walk down the street. You know, where you're going. What happens if you go somewhere you think you know and you end up in an area that maybe you don't feel so good in? Like, how do you manage that? What do you do? Don't panic, right? How I stand on the train. Like, all of these things that he taught me. So that way I feel like I'm not an outsider because I wasn't, but I know that there are people in Chicago who may at times, right? And so it felt like it was very, very much manageable. And, you know, I didn't run to danger, right? If something popped off, I was going the opposite direction.
Right.
Which, again, was something that I was taught. Yeah. And just, like, knowing who you're around, knowing your surroundings. That's what my dad would always say. Know your surroundings.
Yeah. And I feel like even when I go to other places, so when I'm going and visiting other towns or cities and people are like, oh, that's not the best area. I'm always like, I'm sorry, what do you mean by that? You know, because when you say it's not the best area to me, there's a whole slew of things that I know that really don't impact me. And it just happens to be where people live. And that's how they live, right? And so it's like, oh, it's a little rundown. That's fine if they're building themselves up, right? Do people still live there? There's still a community there. You can't just judge them based on, oh, there's nothing there that you would like.
Right.
Or, oh, you don't want to go there because of the kind of people. And it's like, well, let me just go see. Like, I'm that kind of person, right? Like, just, I have that curiosity. Like, you tell me not to go there, but why? I just want to go see. I also had, like, transplants, right? Folks that I worked with downtown who would be like, saying things about homeless folks on the train, whatever the case was. And they're like, Christina's not scared. Now I'm like, what? Yeah, I'm not. What are you trying to say? Like, I'm not scared because I'm too tough. Like, am I too hood? Like,
I know.
What? I don't understand.
And I'm not, like, I don't know. I don't think anybody who knows me would be like, no, well, so hood. Like, that does not, but yeah, going to college, especially, it was like my like introduction label was, this is Noel from the inner city, Chicago, and I'm just like, I swear I'm not packing. Like, you don't have to be afraid of me.
Right.
But I still get so protective over the South Side because working on the North Side, so many of my coworkers live in, there's many neighborhoods on the North Side, but many of them live in those neighborhoods. And so just the idea of like, oh no, like I don't really go to the South Side. And it's just like, well, what does that even mean?
Right.
Like how, like I know people who don't go further south than the Loop. Right? Or the South Loop. I know people don't go further south than Pilsen or Bridgeport. Right? And I'm just like, you're missing out.
Yeah. I'm like, there's a whole bunch of Irish folks and stuff.
I was like, we have parking lots.
You can actually, we have land. Like, you can walk around in parks.
There's space. Yeah.
You can find parking on the street. Go figure. Yeah. And it's interesting how you still have that dynamic within the city itself.
Yes.
Where I used to have friends like, I don't go south of Roosevelt. I'm like, well, I live on 63rd Street, so you're gonna have to if you want to come visit me.
Exactly.
Because I'm not gonna go by you. And that was another thing too. I feel like we'll venture out, right? Like I know I like to go and say like, oh, I haven't been to this part of the city in a long time. Let's go to the neighborhood. Let's go eat there. Let's go see what's going on. Just so that you also don't feel out of touch, right? Like, and that I think, to your point of it being accessible, like we can get around and it's not, oh my goodness, you ever been in a city that's not a grid?
Oh, I'm just like, where's my lake?
Yeah.
Somebody tell me what's the eastmost point so I can understand how to get around the city.
Exactly. Yep. Always. And it's so funny because when I went to New York, I was like, Central Park is the lake. And somebody was like, what? I'm like, always find your lake. That's how you know you're in Chicago, and you always have to find what your lake
When I moved to the city that I went to college in, my dad was like, I asked my dad, I'm like, can you please tell me where the lake is? And he knew exactly what I was talking about. He's like, this boulevard right here, this is the lake. And I'm like, okay, I'll be okay then. I'll be fine now.
So did your dad also test you on the streets?
Not so much the streets, but things like, what's 00? Right?
Okay.
How many blocks to a mile? Like how many city blocks in, and I wish I was this good, but him and my grandfather both, like, I would say a street and they know like it's 2400 West.
That's my mom tested us.
Yeah. So I don't know that very well. I know it for some of the bigger streets. If I look at an address, I know like the gist, but like, I know that if I gave my dad an address, he could probably get us like to exactly that place without any kind of context.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember it was my mom because, so just for listeners' context, our uncles were cab drivers. Okay. And they were the oldest uncles. So, of course, they had a lot of influence over my mom and Noel's dad.
Yeah.
And so I remember just going to my uncle and being like, he was MapQuest before MapQuest existed.
Exactly. And two with the train and the buses. Like,
exactly.
I want to get here. What train and bus should I take, please?
And it was amazing. So we did have our own like internal system of learning and knowing the city. And my mom would always test us. And she's like, Division, 1200 North, North Avenue, 1600 North. Like, what comes after that? So I learned all the North Side streets because obviously South Side, we have numbers.
Right.
And so for her, it was like, okay, now Ashland, now Western, now, all of the different North and South streets.
Yeah.
And when people, I don't know, I think that's unique because every time I ask my friends, I'm like, did you learn the grid system? They're like, no. Yeah. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I had friends that would have to drive to my apartment so that I could drive them around the city.
Yeah.
Because they didn't know where they were
Or like,
going.
God forbid I say, I'm 2 blocks south of whatever. And they're like, what?
Like, which way south? Like, what?
I'm like, south is to my house, north is to work, east is the lake. How do we not? Like, this is the simplest thing.
Oh, goodness. See, and this is how you know when you meet true Chicagoans. This is the Perez-Rodriguez, like, of reasoning as to, you meet a true Chicagoan, they know the grid system and they know how to get around. So on that note, something else that we share is the love of writing. And we were just talking about our process in writing. And I promise I'll get to like the more professional stuff in a minute. But we've always been the writers. We've always been the speakers, always have something to say. I just think all the women in our family are like that. But tell me about writing. Like, what does it mean to you? I know you're a poet. You do long form writing too. You want to publish a book eventually. Like, where is the writing thing right now?
Yeah. Writing is like that thing that never goes away. It's like part of who you are. So it's interesting because sometimes I write and sometimes writing happens to me. If that
I
makes
feel
sense.
that. Yep.
Right now, for the last 10 years, I've been like in poetry mode. And I just find so much satisfaction in expressing myself through poetry and teaching. Oh my God, we're doing poetry right now because we have a poetry slam coming up. And like, it's the best part of the whole school year for me. It's like teaching poetry, getting kids to read their poems, watching them discover like, wow, that was cool. Like what just came out of my mouth, you know? And I use it to help me cope and to help me live. Like that's how it's kind of become for me. So, I've written poetry for fun, and I've also engaged in writing in really hard times in my life, whether it's poetry or just like brain dump journaling. And I also, it's kind of funny, but if you think about it, it's not, but I'm a lot of times the one writing like eulogies and for fun things too, like speeches for weddings.
Yep.
And it's something I absolutely love. And it feels I would say earlier in my life when people started discovering that, oh, like, that sounded good, Noel. Like, you want to try that again? It felt like a burden because it's like, yes, I can write, but like, why has that become my job? And now having like grown into it, I'm like, this is my job. Right? Like, I truly believe words are so powerful. And when I read, that moment when you read something, whether it's nonfiction, fictional poetry, whatever, and you like feel it in your whole body and you're just like, oh my God, like, how did that person know that I was going to need those lines or those words right now? And I just want to do that. I want to do that for others. And I want to do it for people who aren't like mainstream audiences.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So for example, I have a children's book. I have a couple books written in my Google Drive that I don't know what to do with. I have a children's book that I wrote specifically for my brother, one of my brothers and his kids. So I have a brother. I'm one of four. I'm the oldest. And my younger brother has 7 children that he fostered and adopted. And so he adopted a set of 4 siblings. And then several years later, he adopted a set of 3 siblings.
And real quick, he does have a podcast about it too.
He does. It's called 7 Shots Deep on Spotify.
Check it out, especially if you have 7 kids.
Yes. Or you
or you love
know
coffee.
7 kids, or you love coffee. Yes.
Yeah.
But he lives in California. We went to California for the first 4's adoption. And my daughter at the time was 9 months. She was an infant. So she was like crawling around and stuff. And she made like a face. We're all sitting around the living room and she made a funny face. And my brother says, oh my gosh, Noel, she looks just like you. She must have gotten that face from you just now, that face. And his son looked at him and goes, what do I get from you, Dad?
Oh.
And like for a minute, I was like, oh, like I forgot how Gabe answered it. Or my brother. Whoops, sorry, Gabe. I forgot how he answered it. And it was probably perfect in the moment. But I started thinking to myself, like, what do we get from people that's not biology? Like, that's not genetics. And I mean, I was raised by a stepmother, right? Who, I feel like there's parts of me as a mom that I've gotten from her. All sorts of things. Just like anybody who would raise a child, like you pull some of that. And so my book specifically is about the things that we get, and it's called I Get That From You, and it's the things we get from each other that has nothing to do with genetics, but just because like we're with each other and we love each other. And like when you love something, you want to do it with other people who you love.
Yeah, for sure.
And so you pass those things on, and you don't have to have the same color eyes and hair to be able to pass on the love of cooking or learning or writing or what have you, all the things that make us, you know, the different facets of us. And so like, I want to put that out there. I want children who are living in homes with loving families, but who may not like literally look like them, understand that they're still very much like connected to those people. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's beautiful. I love that. Because yeah, it's true. Just from being around your parents, you pick up traits, right? I mean, the negative stuff too. If you start swearing too early, you know, that's what I get from you, mom and dad. I know what words not to say. But I find it so interesting because as I talk to like creatives and, you know, I think about creativity, but I also think about the method of like releasing that, right? And so I have my friends who are painters and muralists and digital designers and graphic designers, and then we have the writers, right? And I feel like sometimes they just lump everybody together. It's like, oh, she's a writer, she knows how to do it, give it to her. But like you said, you're more of that emotional writer, right? Where you want people to feel things, and poetry is your thing. Whereas I tried poetry when I was younger and I hated it. And to me, I was like, if it doesn't rhyme, it doesn't make sense. And, you know, I was a very stereotypical, like this has to be a certain way. You have to be in a certain mindset. Like it's not accessible to me. What's accessible to me is documentation.
Yes. I was just going to say, like, you want people to know.
Right.
And you want to be that person to give them that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not so much like of a feeling. No, I want you to remember what happened, you know, and I want to be able to keep this story because in the future, it's a documentation of the time and the moment and the place. So just to put that out there, we're not all the same.
No, we're not.
And
if you're a publisher and you want, no, just kidding.
Or
but actually,
I'm always like thinking about, because I was thinking I have like the beginning of like little kids books, like like this concept, because I used to tell my daughter, you know, I'm like Muna the monster, right? Muna the monster is like when my daughter is a monster.
Yeah.
Right? And so she would get into these things and she likes frogs and she gets dirty. And I can imagine a little like Sesame Street monster.
That would be the cutest book series.
Right?
Yeah, that would. I could see it already.
And so I'm just like, which one of my friends can draw these pictures? Right? Like, and who would be willing to sit down and work with me on it? So yeah, to anybody listening, you got some creative minds right here then.
It's running all day long.
So one of the things that I would think about, especially with composers, when you would think about like Beethoven and Mozart, and they're coming up with these pieces, and you listen to these pieces, you're like, how does somebody come up with something so complicated? And they say it's already written, or they hear it. Do you know your stories? So for example, one day I was in my kitchen. This is when I was living alone. I was living in Pilsen. I had my little 1-bedroom apartment, and I'm like walking around. All of a sudden it hits me. And this story just starts like going off in my head. And I know the words, and what it felt like was as if you imagine like, you know, somebody dreaming and there's like a ticker. Yeah. And I was grabbing the ticker and just like
pulling it out.
Harry Potter-ish.
Yes.
The pensive, was that?
Yes, that's the pensive with the wand, and they would pull a memory out and put it in the bowl. Yes.
And that's when I saw that, I was like, that's what it feels like when I have a story.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it feels like when I have something to write down, and it's not necessarily emotional in that same sense of like prose or poetry. But for me, it's like I just have this real life situation moment in my head. And that's how I see things. And like, it's almost like a documentary. It's like a picture. And I would sit down and I just start writing, and my hands would just go. Yeah. And it would come out, and I'll be done with whatever that inspirational moment was. And I look at it, I'm like, it's actually a thing.
Yeah.
You know, there's no beginning, there's no end, but it's a thing.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Do you ever get like that? And what are those moments like for you?
I think that's when I described when I write and when writing happens to me. That's kind of like what it feels like. And I'll just be, like you said, just existing, and something will happen, or I'll like zoom in on a moment, and all of a sudden it's like, boom. It starts, like you said, it just starts running in my head. And people who aren't necessarily writers, they laugh at me because they'll say something like, well, have you written this yet? Like, for example, my brother just got married and I said a speech at his wedding. And everybody's like, have you written your speech yet? And it was the day of. And I was like, well, yeah, it's in my head. I just have to like literally put it down on paper.
Right.
And organize it a bit. You know, and I feel like so much of, I don't want to assume it's all writers, but I know quite a few that so much of it lives up here in our heads. And it's like, it's almost like sourdough. It's just waiting to rise to the exact point where you're like, okay, I'm ready to put it down.
Yeah.
I'm ready to, figure this out. Like, oh, it's not ready yet. It's too green.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have a system of like when you're writing things down? I know you do. I don't know if you want to call it up, but the poetry while you wait.
Yeah, I do poems while you wait.
Oh, poems while you wait.
Yeah, and I love poems while you wait. I think poems while you wait was one of the things that really pushed me further in my writing. So for those of you who don't know, poems while you wait is like a crew of poets that show up around the city at different events, and we write poetry while you're like engaging in the event. And so we're all volunteers. And the money that we raise goes towards Rose Metal Press, which is a local printed press that likes to publish books in the hybrid genre that aren't going to be picked up by mainstream publishers. But when you're doing it, like you're sitting, like, so for example, we'll go to a market, maker's market or something that, pop up around the city. So we'll be at a table and we have typewriters. That's part of our kind of pool, is that we, write our poems on these cool vintage typewriters. So we have to get to a point where we can write poetry between like 5 and 15 minutes. Give it to the person, and then we're back to doing it right again for somebody else. And what that really taught me, and this was something I learned from the founders of Poems While You Wait. When I first started, I was so anxious that I was going to write something that person hadn't envisioned when they gave me that topic, and they weren't going to like it. And he goes, first of all, having someone give a poem back to you is a rite of passage. So if that ever happens, just be like, okay, I'm a writer, like just move on, because everybody who writes is going to meet someone who doesn't like their writing. And that's just it. He goes, but secondly, you have to write the poems for yourself, because that's how they're going to be good, because you're going to put in that humor or heart or whatever it is that you're aiming for in your tone, right? And so once I started writing for myself, obviously in Poems While You Wait, but then just everywhere else in my life, I really felt like it really pushed me. And as far as my process, I feel like I go, I know I don't work in a scenario where I'm writing all the time. I'm a teacher and I teach writing, I teach reading. But for my own personal writing, I'll go through phases where like I'm doing maybe just a daily journal here and there, and I'm doing Poems While You Wait once a month. And then I go through phases where it's like, I can't not be writing something all the time. And I have like napkins and notebooks that I'm carrying around. I mean, you and I went out the other night and you came in and I was writing in my notebook because it just like, I had to put it down. And so when that happens, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll have the things that I'm writing like in my notebook, and then I'll move it to like a document on Google.
Oh, okay.
And then I'll like highlight it in the notebook, and because I like to visually be like, wow, look at all that I've written, and then transferred. Like all this yellow and orange.
Okay.
I like that visual. And then in my computer, it's like I have a writing folder, and then it's just like poetry, novels, children's books, ideas, like just ideas that I haven't even like pulled out to be anything. They're just like a book about this, a story about this, a poem about this. But I'm always trying to connect to common humanity.
Okay.
Like I always feel like everything I write has a thread of my experience. And my hope is that it will help others to connect, whether it's with me or with each other. So yeah, I do have my poems and everything I write is very tied to emotion. Yeah.
No, that's great. And what was did you mention like that the tip. Like, did you get tips on how to write so fast? Like, yes, of course, you might write something that somebody doesn't like, but like to get it out.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I would be, like almost frozen because I'm like, I got it. So just to have it, anything, I'm like, I'm going to have to edit it and then go back and then read it again.
Okay, so that's another tip is to not self-edit.
Oh,
I know. And
that's
to just
so hard.
to just go for it. I mean, obviously, so I've been doing it for like 5 years. So initially I had like a little notebook and I would like try to write it in the notebook and then try to go and type it up on the typewriter. And that same guy, he was like, nope, toss in the notebook. You got to go straight to the typewriter, like go straight to it. And of course I make mistakes and I have to pull it out and try again. And of course I'll start typing something. I'll be like, this is terrible and rip it out and then take parts that were good. But it's like I've been able to train my brain that when I'm in this context of writing, just go. And I wish I like could explain it better, but that's just how it just moves quickly in my head when I know I'm in the Poems While You Wait, like the typewriter poetry place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I would totally be paralyzed by like having to produce something.
Another good tip that
away.
the other founder gave me. She keeps notebooks, tiny little ones that she keeps in her bag. And anytime she just has these like you said, like you have that phrase or you have that word or you have that start. Whenever she has that, she writes them down. And then when we're writing for Poems While You Wait, she'll like look through the notebook and it's like just this little notebook of inspiration of her own work for herself. So I started doing that as well. And like
that's a good idea.
Putting sticky notes on pages that like specifically have like poem ideas or even like a whole poem or even half a poem that I could like flip through in moments when I'm like, oh, what do I write? I mean, the topics we get sometimes, I'm like, I know nothing about this. How am I going to do it, So
that's like a different, like I'm trying to think of like other art forms that are like instantaneous like that.
Yeah.
And the one thing that comes to mind is caricature artists.
Yes.
Right?
Or those
but at
artists,
least you have something to look at.
Right.
So you're not starting from nothing. Like write about transformation. Go. Like
that's literally what it's. Yes. Literally. I had somebody say, put down on the paper, because they write it down on this little paper for us to keep track of, 1812 French fur trade.
That's hilarious.
And I just started with like, this is not your grandma's fur trade. And then, because that's what popped in my head. I don't know if it was my grandma's, like obviously my grandma's not that old, but like I had no idea. I just thought that sounds really funny to me. And I went with it, and I just hope that he had a sense of humor.
Yeah, that's hilarious. I actually, now come to think of it, I actually used to test myself. Not test myself, but give myself writing assignments.
Like challenge yourself.
Yes. And I would say, give me random things. Give me a city, give me a number of people, and give me a conflict. And so then my friends, and actually they're on my blog, so you can still go read them.
That sounds cool.
And it was literally.
We should do that.
Yeah, we should do it. Bring it back.
Yes,
bring it back.
Let's do that.
Because what my parameters were, because it was a writing assignment for me, was I couldn't edit. Like I would have to look everything up. Like if there were some things that I was like trying to piece together, I would like look stuff up and then sit there and just write it in one sitting. Like take an hour to write it out. Came out to like 400, 600 words, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
But it was a short story.
Yeah.
I still have one that I was working on, and it was Moscow something or other. And there's a Moscow, Illinois.
Is there?
Something what
Moscow as in the mule in Russia, right?
Yes.
Oh.
and so and that was the other thing that I started thinking about things differently. So if somebody said Paris, I'm like, I know there's a Paris, Illinois. I'm going to go take it to small town, right? And then like you assume I'm going to write about France, but no, so it's just stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's also like like the writing exercise, like go, see what you can come up with.
Well, and I think we keep coming back to it is this idea of self-editing. And that was just something that I've been told by many writers, and I've learned myself too, is don't self-edit as you're writing. Just get it out. Write it. Even if like, just write it. If you think it's bad, who cares? Write it. Because you have to you have to dig through the dirt to get to anything good, right? Even flowers are nestled in mud and dirt, and to pull it out, you got to dig it out. The idea of just writing, that was so hard for me, because as you're writing, you're like, oh, I used that word wrong. Oh, I need to add a comma there. Oh, this is cheesy. Oh, and all the reasons. And it's like, just put it out there. Just write it. Write the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, and come back to it. And I mean, I feel like you'd be surprised. I don't know about you, but have you read things that you've written a long time ago that in that moment you're like, well, this is the best I got. Here you go. And then you look at it and you're like, dang, I'm not that bad.
Right. Where I'm like, I actually use this word the right way. Holy cow.
Yeah.
I used to do a lot of, when I met my husband around that same time, I would do a lot of stream of conscious writing, like wake up first thing in the morning and just write whatever I felt compelled to write. And half the time I wasn't even thinking. It was like my hand was just moving by itself. And then I sit there and I'm like, oh, is that's how I feel? It's just like, it's so interesting that there could be such a disconnect when you're doing something that's so personal.
Yes.
But it's fascinating because then you don't remember it, or you're like, oh, that was really good. I'm impressed by my.
And so I used to do that, but I would take it a step further because of my visual thing. And if I woke up and after I read it, after I was done, if I woke up with anxiety, I'd put like a red sticky. If I woke up with feeling good, I'd put like a green. And that's how I was able to track my moods. But it helped me when I was like, it was during a time when I was in therapy. And sometimes you don't know if therapy's working. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It's not like you can they can prick your blood and be like, oh, good, percentage of depression is down. You just have to hope it's working. Right. But that was one way that I was able to track it, as I saw like so much red in the beginning, and then it got a little better. And now like I'm seeing more green daily, or whatever color you choose. Right. Yeah.
That's so interesting. So obviously writing has always been a part of your life. When did you start to write? Like really start writing?
I've had amazing teachers my whole life. I really have. But I had a teacher who taught us like a poetry unit. And we had to make like a poetry portfolio. And I was like, this is actually pretty awesome. Like I had always enjoyed reading, but I hadn't really taken a stab at writing. And I was in like 7th grade. Okay. So I had I bought myself a little notebook because of course, got to have all the vibes. And I like filled that thing with poems. And I completely like put it aside and forgot about it. And I was writing a lot in high school, but I also, I have 4 parents. My parents were divorced. I lived with my mom and my stepfather. But I saw my dad and my stepmother weekly. I saw them all the time. They were very involved. And, but one of my parents who I lived with was very critical in a way. And as a teacher, like I can look back and be like, that wasn't productive criticism. Like that wasn't helpful. And it really made me feel like I didn't know what I was doing. And so I just kind of stopped writing. And I was a senior in high school and we had to write a short story for a class. And I wrote a short story and I really liked it. And it was seen by, that critical parent and just kind of how they always were really critical of it. So I was expecting a bad grade. And my teacher, passed it all out. Just that typical, teacher thing, right? Noel, will you come see me after class? And it's like, oh, okay. I'm nervous. And she puts it in front of me and she's like, this is really good. I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, are you sure? Because I think that this part wasn't very good. I think this was bad. And she's like, no. She's like, this is really good. And if you enjoy writing, you should keep writing. And I was like, okay, but that one parent said this and this and that. And she's like, I'm sorry that they said that to you, but that's not. She's like, who are you going to trust, them or the person who looks at writing all the time, all day, every year? I'm like, oh, good point. Right. And so I just took it up again. But then you go into college and you I don't know about you, but I had hardly any time for pleasure reading and pleasure writing.
Pleasure, nothing.
Yes. Right. I feel like in my adult years, I stopped writing again out of just necessity of time. And, I didn't have the ability to sit down and do it. And then during the pandemic, I joined, or prior to the pandemic, I would say about 2 years prior to the pandemic, I joined a writer's group and I started going to therapy. And I like literally had this moment where I was like, I used to love writing. I used to love doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I found my old notebook that I had saved it all these years with all of those like middle school poems. And after that, I was just like, this brings me so much joy. So like never again will we be broken up. Like you will always, like we are back in love. And, you know, I didn't think I considered myself a writer, you know, but it was like, no, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to be doing this now for the rest of my life.
That's so funny because the other conversation that I had, people, it's hard for people to admit what they know. It's like right in front of your freaking face.
Yeah.
You know? And so like another conversation, folks will hear that podcast soon, but like admitting that they were an artist.
Yeah.
It was like, oh no, I'm not an artist. And like, I feel like I was going through that too. When I first met a writer, her name is Stephanie Elizondo Gris. She has a few books out and I met her in college. She was one of the writers that we brought down to like give workshops, presentations. And I think I skipped all my classes that day just to like hang out with her. And we were at a coffee shop and we're talking and I'm telling her about my experience in college. I mean, very, very shared experience just because of how far south our schools were. And it was just a different dynamic and different atmosphere. Culture shock for real. Both ways, right? Yeah. And so I remember she was the first person to tell me, she's like, you're an artist. You can write this. You can be a writer. And if you're writing this already, like that makes you an artist. Like that you are what you are.
I know. I don't know. It's like we feel like we need an outside validation for somebody to look at you and go, oh, you're a writer. And be like, yes, but in reality, it's like.
But here, this is what I also think it's because of the perception of what we have of writers, right? You think of like Thoreau.
Yeah.
Right? And you think of Emily Dickinson. But then you're like, I'm like, Emily Dickinson didn't have a life.
No.
She wasn't a mother. She didn't explore her city. She was literally locked up in a room writing poetry.
Poor
I know. You didn't even get to experience your life to the fullest. But we think of these writers because we're being taught these, especially if you go to university and you're learning through this very, I don't know what to call it. I don't know how to describe it.
Like white heteronormative.
Yes.
European heteronormative lens. Yeah.
Exactly. Where you're like.
Unless you seek out, you know, the alternative
writers, right? And you're like, I'm sorry, they're all brown. Like, oh yeah, that's what makes them alternative. That's mainstream to me.
Yeah.
Right. And it was this that perception of this is what they were doing all the time, and this is what they would document, and this is how they went out into the middle of the forest and locked themselves away. I'm like, why in isolation all the time?
Yeah. You
know, how do you have that human connection? And maybe it was reflective period. I don't know. But overall, I'm basically saying is that we were taught to put these writers on a pedestal.
Absolutely.
And you never, as a young person especially, you're like, I'm not that. Mm-hmm. You know, how am I ever going to be that? I don't know. How do you get titled as writer? Well, guess what? Just write. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, how you get titled as an artist? Just create.
Do it.
Just paint.
Yeah.
Right? Because there is no special. There's not a standard because it's so unique. You know, art in every sense of the word is just such a unique personal expression of self.
Yes.
That I think I got to a certain point too where I'm like, you can't even compare.
No. Like
you cannot compare pieces of art.
Like, they're an artist because of this, but you're not because it's like, that doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, I love art and creativity. It's just such,
I know.
It's so deep.
And that's why it was so important to me when my daughter started creating to not be like, that's cute, but just to be like, what an artist you are. Mm-hmm. Look at the art you're making. Mm-hmm. Because it's like, if that's what I had needed, maybe whatever, I've arrived still, right? I still have arrived. It took me a little longer, but I love her knowing that she's making art and that she loves art and she's an artist. Right. And a writer. I guess she has to write a book for school and she's reading it to me and I'm like, holy crap. Like, this girl writes better than me. Like, get her, you know? And I'm like, you're a writer. Yeah. You know, well, it's for school. And that doesn't matter. Right. Like, you are writing. This is art.
Right. And it just matters if you want to be consistent at it.
Yes.
Right. And it's like, oh, you can take it and refine it and make it better. up to your standards, but don't say that you're not just because you don't like the title or know somebody else didn't validate you. But anyway, so thinking about this, right? And I would think you want to be a writer. You'd want to be, no, you went into teaching. Mm-hmm. So explain that process? Like you're in college, you're learning that you love writing again, but where did the ambition to be a teacher come from?
Yeah. So I wanted to be a teacher since I was in the 6th grade. So the kids that I teach now, they're 6th graders. So I look at them all the time and I'm just like, wow, I knew I wanted to be a teacher when I was your age. So I had always been a pretty vocal student. I feel inside introverted, but I don't think that's how I would be described by other people.
Okay.
And I liked school. I enjoyed it. I, was the one raising my hand, participating. I enjoyed like having lunch with my teachers sometimes, stuff like that. And so when I was in 6th grade, they came up with this little mentor program, and it was one of those like selection things. So they asked me if I wanted to, at the end of every day, go downstairs to the kindergartners and help them get ready and packed up to go home. And I was like, yeah, that sounds a lot of fun. I mean, I would always play school with my siblings. I was the oldest. And so like nurturing and taking care of the younger ones was always something I enjoyed anyway. Mm-hmm. So I went, and I think the teacher, and funny enough, so the teacher who I worked with when I was in 6th grade and wanted to be a teacher was also a student teacher for my brother at one point. Mm-hmm. And she is now the head of a network in CPS.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So like props to her.
Mm-hmm.
But I think she just maybe saw more. Like she saw that I could do more than just like help a kid put on his jacket. Mm-hmm. And she would give me more and more responsibilities. Like, why don't you lead the not the morning song, it was the end of the day song, right? Why don't you walk the kids through this? Why don't you read this book to this small section of kids? And I just started loving it and loving it and loving it. And it just felt so right. Like it felt like this was exactly where I was supposed to be. And then I had an opportunity as a sophomore to teach catechism. So like Sunday school, for those who don't know what catechism is. And so I taught catechism all the way until I graduated. And so every Saturday I had my own class, and we had like a book about Jesus, and I would teach catechism, and I loved it. Again, I loved it. Mm-hmm. And so by the time I got to college, I was like, oh, I'm absolutely being a teacher. But what's funny is I started off wanting to be a primary grade teacher.
Okay.
And then once I was in college and I was like taking classes, I switched to middle school, or I switched to secondary, which is high school.
Okay.
And then, like, right at the last minute, which I'm so glad I did, I added, like, a middle school endorsement. So on my teaching license, I can teach 6 to 12.
Okay.
And so, And so I won a couple awards going into college that were related to teaching. So I was provided with a lot of opportunities to experience being in the classroom. Mm-hmm. And it just has always felt like the place where I can thrive with my students. Like, I don't want to lead a professional development and talk to a bunch of other teachers. That's going to make me shaky and give me a little tummy ache, and I'll be like, but put me in a classroom with kids and let me teach them something, and I'll do it. Like, that to me is like, yes, that's where I need to be. Mm-hmm. So this is my 16th year of teaching.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've taught a variety of ages. So I started off at an alternative school with high schoolers. Then I moved to an all boys charter school. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I moved to a CPS elementary school that has a middle school in it, the 6th, 7th, 8th.
Oh, okay.
And so I can teach 6, 7, 8. And so I started there with 6. I bumped to 8th for a couple of years, and now I'm back at 6. Mm-hmm. And I think this is my sweet spot.
And what are you teaching?
I'm teaching subjects? English, reading and writing.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so I know you were talking about like the poetry slam recently. Do you have like a set of poets, like go-to poets in your head when you're like introducing?
Like introducing to the kids poetry.
Yeah. Or writers in general.
Yeah. So I'm a lot of times when kids think of poetry, they think of really heady, like, I don't understand that kind of poetry.
Shakespeare.
Yeah, exactly. Who I still love.
Yes.
I still love you. Okay.
It takes some time to get to know you, but
Yes,
I love you.
But like, wow. And so my main thing when I'm teaching poetry to students is that it's accessible to them. And I want them to see that. And I want them to see that, like, poetry can be something that they can enjoy even if they don't, like, completely understand it. So we do short stories kind of to start us off, like really short stories, like by Sandra Cisneros. She's written this really great story called 11 about her turning 11. But of course, when you turn 11, that doesn't mean that you're exactly 11, right? You're also 2 and 4 and 6 and 8, like those years, right? And it used really great figurative language. So I get their like interest a little tickled with the figurative language. And then we do things like, we do Emily Dickinson because it's a lot of her poems are very structured.
Yes, true.
The rhyme scheme is right there, so it's not difficult to pull out. We do a little Pablo Neruda but the reason why I throw that in is because he writes in a way that's almost fantastical, but it sounds great.
Yeah.
And so it's like, listen to this. It doesn't make complete sense sometimes. I can think it means something else and you can think it means something else, but isn't it fun to listen to? And I teach them that the way to enjoy poetry is you have to engage with it more than once. So they read it silently first on their own. And then I read it or somebody reads it out loud and they have to hear it. I tell them all the time, you have to hear the poetry because that's how it's meant to be enjoyed. And then if I can find it read by the author or put to mute, like if I could find it some other way, auditory, then I'll play that for them. Or sometimes I'll have us read it as a class so they could hear like the chorus of it. I mean, I can keep going.
But
so yes, I
yeah.
have a set amount of poets that I use as like an intro.
Okay.
And then also the process of how to read poetry is really important. And then once we start writing poetry, I like won't let them hand it in unless they've read it out loud and they hear it themselves. Because there's so many times where they're like, they show me a poem and my first thing is to read it out loud.
Yeah.
They're like, no, just don't read it out loud. And I'm like, I'll read it quietly so just you and I can hear, but this is meant to be heard. And I read it out loud and we'll talk. Oh, see, when I read it out loud, this word on paper looks like it rhymes.
But
and if you're aiming to rhyme, it doesn't rhyme. If you don't care about the rhyme, cool, we're good.
Right.
But you got to hear it out loud.
Yeah.
So.
That's so interesting. I remember I feel like I was more exposed to like that intricate poetry kind of like analysis. Like, yeah, we did it in college and like, you know, the Brits and like early English, whatever. But in Spanish class, I think that's when it came out even more.
Yeah.
When you're like
an AP Spanish lit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're reading this poetry and obviously as a native Spanish speaker, it rings different, right? It just sounds different in your ear. But I just remember one time we were going through the poem and somebody called it out and they're like, that's grammatically wrong. Like that word shouldn't be there. And my teacher at the time, Senior Kennedy, I love him so much. So hello, Senior Kennedy, if you listen to this. But he basically said, he's like, it doesn't matter because in Spanish, it's supposed to sound beautiful.
Yeah.
So if the word doesn't make sense, but it fits because it sounds beautiful, that's how it's gonna roll.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm sorry. Now you've really confused me. But whatever, that's fine. And so it was always that like, yeah, you have to listen. It's meant to be spoken.
Yes.
It's meant to be recited.
And I say the same thing to my kids and they love it. It's kind of like, like when mom's always like, eat your vegetables. And then one day mom's like, let's have pizza and you can have ice cream before dinner, and everyone's like, yay. And it's like, not that ever happened to me in my life, but when a kid, he thinks it's a word. And like I had a student literally on Friday, he wrote a word down that rhymed and but it wasn't a real word. And I was like, just so you know, this is not a real word, but I get what you're saying. So you can leave it because this is your poem and you get the poetic license, or we can change it out and you can put in a word that you know. Or I had another student who was handwriting and he put very, Verry, because he wanted it to be very, right?
Oh, okay.
And a kid was like, you didn't spell it right. And he's like, no, I did it on purpose. And the kid was like, no. And so that kid, my darling little, tattletale, had to come up to me and be like, he spelled it wrong. And then I go, okay, why did you spell it that way? And he goes, because I want it to be very. And I said, oh, okay. I think you need to add more R's. And the other kid's like, what? And I'm like, leave him alone. Let him write his poem. It's a poem. It's not a compare contrast essay. Like, we have plenty of time for that, where I will bring the hammer down on the grammar and, making sure they're code switching to academic English, like doing all of that. I said, this is a poem.
Right.
I have students who ask if they could write some of it in a different language, as long as you're not cursing at me.
As long as it's not bad.
I don't know Russian. I don't know any of the African nation languages. So, like, I'm really trusting you, but do it.
Yeah.
Like, if that's what's coming out of your body, out of your hand, out of your mouth when you're trying to say these things, do it.
Yeah. That's awesome. And speaking of which, so yeah, you clearly are teaching at a school that has wide range of just diversity, a lot of different students, from a lot of different parts of the world. And especially I feel like when you go to Northside, you do get a bit more diversity, from, background and things like that. So talk to me, I guess, about what it's like to be teaching right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we addressed this kind of like, 2025, 2024, this time period, this era is going to be marked, right? We're going to know this era for different reasons, mainly not very good ones, but there's a time and a place where we have to be more reflective and we have to be more careful and we have to be more communicative. And there's just a lot going on, a lot of pieces to try and keep in order.
For sure.
How does that kind of translate into the classroom?
Yeah. So I work at a magnet school, which means we, like a magnet does, we pull from all parts of the city. But because we are on the north side, a lot of our students come from the north side of Chicago. A lot of our students are first or second generation Americans. Right now, it's like I have to worry about, am I reaching the objectives? Am I hitting all the standards? And are my children safe? And will anybody be swept up? Will anybody's parents not make it home?
Yeah.
And it's, a really scary time for children that are aware of what's happening, that unfortunately have to be made aware of what's happening. Now, I'm very aware of my privilege. I'm an American citizen. My husband's an American citizen. So, not to say I won't ever get taken the way things are kind of going right now. Let's be honest. The law is on my side, right? So because of that, I don't necessarily feel the need to prepare or prep my daughter in any way. But that's a privilege. Like, my daughter goes to sleep and goes to school every day knowing, bar any extreme accidents or anything, I'm going to be home that night.
Right.
My husband's going to be home that night. I have students who don't know that. I have, when I think of students in general, one student comes to my mind, and this is hitting her so hard that she has to call her father every lunch break so she can hear his voice. So she knows he answered, he's safe. And God forbid she call, what is going to happen? She calls one day and he's not able to answer.
Right.
We have binders now that we didn't have, full of emergency plans, which are different than an emergency contact. Yeah. These are plans if I am gone suddenly, call this person, please make sure my child gets to this place. Please contact this person. And I cannot imagine as a parent having to write that out.
Right.
What do I'm writing out what to do with my child if I suddenly disappear. we're, those of us who want to, it's never forced upon us. We go through training. Like, how do I interact with an ICE agent who happens to be outside of the building? What are the legalities with recording?
Right.
What happens to my job if I'm sticking up for a parent and I get arrested and I get put into a truck? CTU, Chicago Teachers Union, they hand out lots of flyers and documents about knowing your rights and please do this if, and we spend as much time as we can like passing them out. We'll get text messages or alerts from our principal to go on soft lockdown, which means, so a hard lockdown is everybody in the building has to go to a place of safety. That's like a shooter drill, which that's another thing that we haven't even
Yeah.
A soft lockdown is you don't have to alert the students, but nobody leaves the building.
Okay.
So we've had to go on soft lockdowns because ICE has reported a block from our school. Or ICE is at another school that happens to be just a little bit away from us. And, we have a team of teachers who go out and kind of patrol. Like, we go out and we're out there in the mornings. We're out there after school just walking around. And I remember it was just one time, but I was out there on patrol and this black SUV pulled up and stopped. And I was like, okay, it's not a big deal. Like, in my head, I'm like trying to calm myself down. So I start walking a little faster. And they eventually pull off. But I'm just like, where was the kid? Who got in your car? Like, why were you there? You know? And it's just, you start running through your mind. Okay, what do I say? What do I do? Who do I call? Who's over there? Do I have to move people? Do I have to? And it's just all these things that like, you don't think about that you would have to do when you become a teacher. And I feel like the job of teacher is becoming so much more, it's becoming so much of that. Like, oh, when I became a teacher, I didn't think I would have to, learn how to do this. I don't think I would have to prep my students to pick up anything that could be a weapon off their desk and throw it at an active shooter if they came into my room. I didn't think that I would have to possibly like take a literal bullet to protect my children. Or I didn't think I would have to hope and pray that my child's teacher would take a bullet for her children. Like, it's just the state of education in America. And I don't want to leave, right? Like, I feel even, as it gets kind of scary, I feel even more and more compelled to be there. But it's just like, it's just not the career that I thought I was going to have when I decided to become a teacher. Ever since, especially the COVID, teaching has just become something so different. Yeah, for sure. Definitely like more demanding of the classroom, of the administration, right? And of society.
Yeah. I mean, it's more than anything, it just says like how we don't prioritize our educational system.
Right.
Which is sad.
We don't. I'm about to get on a high horse, so just give me a second. We don't.
Go ahead.
America does not have a strong sense of collective responsibility. Other countries do. We do not. If you think about Japan, have you ever seen on Netflix that silly little show where they send Japanese toddlers to do a task?
No. Yes, I've seen like clips of that where they like go grocery shopping. And stuff. Yeah.
And as an American, we're like, that is wild.
Right.
Because look at that adorable little kid. Somebody's going to swoop them up. Nobody's going to see them. Somebody's going to hit them. And Japan has such a high level of collective responsibility for their youngest and their oldest people that child actually is safe, because everybody's going to spot that child and say like, yeah, it's not my child, but I see them. And if something happens, I'm going to intervene because that's a child.
Right. They know they're innocent.
Yes.
They're out here doing something that they were asked to do. And so let's make sure that he or she is able to complete her task and go home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, if we had that, if we were strong in our collective responsibility, then everything that happens in schools would be at the priority of every bipartisan, every government official, right? We wouldn't care where the money came from to feed the children. We just would make sure they were fed. We wouldn't care what we needed to do to protect them. We would just make sure they were protected. And I feel like because we don't have a strong sense of collective responsibility, all of that burden gets put on superintendents, which gets put on, district managers, principals, teachers. Like I feel like my responsibility of a child goes way past whether he's going to learn and do well on a test. And I really truly think that as a country, we're prioritizing the wrong things. And it's very clear when you see how the most vulnerable in your population is treated. That's how they do it.
Yeah.
How are children and the elderly treated in America? Not great.
If you serve the most vulnerable, then everybody succeeds, right? Like, because then if you had this collective responsibility, then as parents, you could relax a little knowing that your child's safe.
Yes. That's why I love my particular school so much, because so there's this idea that comes from Africa. It's called Ubuntu, Ubuntu. And it's basically, I am because you are. And the idea of it is like, my successes are your successes. And at the same point, my failures, my tragedies are your tragedies. In our school, like that is our mission. That is like every day it's Ubuntu. And it's because of that where I've really started to understand the idea of collective responsibility, and how just because I'm a 6th grade teacher doesn't mean the 1st graders aren't mine. And just because I no longer teach the 8th graders, that they're not mine, right? Like I'm a teacher at this school. They're all my students. And that's hard for teachers to fully get behind, because it is so hard to be a teacher. And it's like, okay, so I have 150 kids, and I'm responsible for all of them, and I'm responsible for A, B, C, D. And you also want me to feel collectively responsible for all the other grades? Like, how does that make sense? But I'm going to step off the high horse in just a second. But I think if we as a nation, and then obviously it trickled down to schools, if we felt a stronger sense of collective responsibility, things would not be as hard. Because we're all doing it, not just one or two teachers who believe this.
Right.
And I really think that that's what the goal is in our building, and we're moving towards it. But I mean, we're one building. Right. Not to say there aren't amazing things happening in other buildings. But it's something that we need to see more of in general in the country.
How do you keep your classroom a safe space for your students, right? Despite all of this stuff.
I enjoy my job. I go in and my plan is to have a good time. We're going to laugh and you're going to learn. But I'm going to enjoy myself because I also love what I teach, like the content. I like English. I like reading. I like writing. And so that's already part of it. Keeping the joy in the classroom is I myself carry joy for the job and the content. And I think that's very clear to the students. And I also really come down and have really strict expectations when there's an incident where my students or a student is not safe, whether it's physical or emotional. And I make sure they understand I want to come to school and have a good time. I want to laugh. I want to have jokes. I want to play music. But if you're not going to follow my expectations, then we have to get rid of those things because we won't have time because I'm going to spend all my time reminding you of the expectations. So because I'm stern, because I have pretty strict expectations, I think that helps to keep the classroom community safe because they understand that, yes, Ms. Perez-White's going to laugh or she's going to tell a joke, but it's always going to be something that's safe. I never use embarrassment as a tool for my to get my students to listen. And I'm not I'm not like this really big, like, I want them to be fearful of me.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to be fearful of getting an F because that's their own legacy they're leaving in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that's part of, and I also just, I think in general, I can be a pretty silly, funny person.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not the type of teacher who's like, this is out of school Noel and this is teacher Noel. There's a lot of back and forth.
Right. You're only one person.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. But I feel like, when you're in school, they're like, you have to be the teacher version.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I'm me. Maybe I tone down the, swears too much Noel. I do. I tone it down. And I tone down the sarcasm.
Mm-hmm.
Or sometimes I turn it way up so it's so obvious.
Mm-hmm.
But like the joyfulness, the enjoyment of what I do, like I really feel like that's both me as just a general person and me as a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so then how do you now, I guess,
Yeah.
inside and outside the classroom, right?
Right.
How do you stay resilient?
I don't like the word resilient anymore, and I don't have a word to replace it. I think the reason why I keep moving forward, and I'm, for lack of a better word, resilient, is weirdly enough, I've experienced some tragedy in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, as my cousin, but I lost my son
Mm-hmm.
3 years ago. And I was pregnant. He was 20 weeks and I went into labor unexpectedly and delivered him. And he, being so young, could not, stay alive outside of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was lucky enough to hold him and meet him and see him before he passed away. And I mean, as you can imagine, that was like the darkest time of my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And to be like completely transparent, I, at the time, was not sure that I was going to be living after that much longer. And I was surrounded by people who love me. I was medicated. I was put in therapy. I went to a outpatient hospitalization program called Compass. They're great.
Mm-hmm.
So just shout out Compass. And I had to like relearn how to like live.
Mm.
And more importantly, I had to learn how to live without my son.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you're a son or a parent of a son or a child, any child, that sounds impossible.
Impossible.
And because I feel like, because I've like sat with dark
Mm-hmm.
and like we took tequila shots together basically
Mm-hmm.
and had coffee, that there's nothing, of course there is, but there's nothing that could like break me.
Right. If that didn't break you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I learned that grief is going to always, it's always there. There's no time heals all wound, none of that shit. No, that doesn't, it's bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
But grief and I are going to become and have become old friends. And even grief some days is like, I'm real sorry I'm here, but like I'm here and I'm here to stay for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to be able to live with grief, you have to find the moments of joy.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to, more so than finding them, you have to allow yourself to see it and feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And since my son died, I haven't had a moment of joy that was pure joy. It's a moment of joy with the grief mixed in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because it's always there.
Yeah.
Just like, when we become parents everything we think about is always going to be, tinted with how will this affect my child?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I had to learn to like allow myself to be deep. So if I'm going to be deeply grieving, then I'm going to do it, because that grief means that I had this really great love.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And when I'm happy, I'm just going to let myself like feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to surround myself with people who I love and stop surrounding myself with people who I'm supposed to love, but, they've harmed me.
Right.
I'm going to put up those boundaries, and I'm going to wear all the jewelry I want, and I'm going to make the bad art and write the poetry, and I'm going to, go to the performances and, be truly myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like a way to be resilient is to be wholly authentic, because if you're not authentic, then what do you pull from within you to pick your ass up out of that hole?
Mm-hmm.
As a truly authentic version of myself, when I'm in a dark place, I now know the ways that I can either just kind of let myself stay there if I need to for a little. I know the people who I can turn to come and sit with me, or the people I can turn to who shines a light on me and puts a ladder in there and says, get up here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I'll give you time to do that later, but not right now. You better get up here.
Mm-hmm.
But I think so much of that comes from authenticity, and authenticity gives you power.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's how I've been able to be resilient in my life.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. I mean, well, there's some things that people would just not admit about themselves, or not want to sit with that, grief or those big feelings, right? Where you're just like, I don't know what to do with this. And then you choose to either self-medicate or do something else that may not be, because you just want to get over it so fast.
Exactly.
And the thing is that we have to learn to live with those emotions, as horrible as it may feel at the time.
Yes.
I mean, it could be even like a fight, right? Yeah. Or like an argument, or just like those moments where you're exhausted and defeated, and you're like, let me pity myself for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I set a timer. Sometimes I just set a timer. Yeah. I'm like, all right, let's do it. You've been wanting to.
Now's the time.
Let it out, girl. But you're right on there, because prior to losing my son, I was very much we talked about the white knuckling, right? I was very much all right, just stuff it down, stuff it. And this was the kind of thing where there was no ignoring it. There was, I did not have the capsule to hold it.
Right.
So it was everywhere. I was just flowing with it, and sitting with it and getting to know it, and allowing it to be a part of who I was, and allowing myself to come out of it on the other end different. That's, I think what truly helps me to be authentic, and then to have that power, and then to be resilient.
Well, on that note, I think it's a perfect time to close this out. That was amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. I
Absolutely.
know we're both busy, but we found this time to sit down and have the conversation. But this was amazing. It was great. And I can't wait for us to do it again. I'm like, I need to bring people back, because there's some like conversations that can either continue.
Oh, yeah.
Or they're just like left undone.
I mean, and me and you, we always can talk and talk and talk.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be like, okay, time to go home, and we'll stand at the door for another 20 minutes.
And talk and talk and talk. But we're not going to do that to these listeners. We're actually going to end it now. So thank you all for listening. Again, find everything on Click Communications at @click_communications on Instagram. Email me at clickcommunications@gmail.com. Tune in for the next one, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.